Welcome to this presentation. This video presents the introductory part of The Empire Writes Back by Bill Ashcraft, Gareth Griffiths, and Helen Tiffin. This exposition is created to help the PG students who learn post-colonialism. The lives of the three-fourths of the world mass have been shaped by the experience of colonialism. The impact of colonialism is visible in political and economical spheres. Literature and other arts like painting, sculpture, music, and dance encode the realities experienced by the colonized. In the introductory part of The Empire Writes Back, we can read what are post-colonial literatures and literary studies, development of post-colonial literatures, hegemony, language, place and displacement, post-coloniality and theory. What are post-colonial literatures? Writings by the writers of formerly colonized nations, colonized by Britain and other European powers such as France, Portugal, and Spain. The term post-colonial suggests a concern with the national culture after the departure of imperial power. Colonial period refers to the period before independence in constructing national literary histories. The term colonial has been used for the period before independence and it indicates a national writing. The term post-colonial is used to cover all the cultures affected by the imperial process from the moment of colonization to the present day. This book is concerned with the world during and after the period of European imperial domination and its effect on contemporary literatures. Literatures of African countries, Australia, Bangladesh, Canada, Caribbean countries, India, Malaysia, Malta, New Zealand, Pakistan, Singapore, South Pacific island countries, and Sri Lanka are post-colonial literatures. Why is the post-colonial nature of the USA not recognized? Literatures of the USA should have been included in post-colonial literature, but its current position of power and neo-colonial role played by it prevent it from being recognized as post-colonial. Post-colonial nations, besides their special and distinctive regional characteristics, emerge in their present form out of the experience of colonization. They have struggled and fought with the imperial power to assert themselves by emphasizing their differences from the assumption of the imperial culture. Post-colonial literatures and English studies. The study of English has been a political and cultural phenomenon. In the 19th century, English became a privileged academic subject in Britain. It was included in the syllabus of Oxford and Cambridge universities and reaffirmed in 1921 Newbold report. English replaced the classics at the heart of 19th century humanities studies. The emergence of English as an academic discipline produced the 19th century colonial form of imperialism. Gauri Vishwanathan argues that the institutionalization and subsequent valorization of English literary study to a shape and an ideological content developed in the colonial context. British administrators, provoked by missionaries on the one hand and the fears of native insubordination on the other, discovered an ally in English literature to support them in maintaining control of the natives under the guise of liberal education. The study of English and the growth of empire proceed from a single ideological climate. Both work at the simple utility as well as the unconscious level. They work to naturalize the constructed values like civilization, humanity, and establish savagery, native, primitive as their antithesis. They have undertaken this mission with a reforming zeal to civilize and humanize the colonized. The privileging norm was enthroned at the heart of the formation of English studies that denied the values of the peripheral, the marginal, and the uncanonized. Literature was made central to the cultural enterprise of the empire as monarchy was made the central to its political formation. When the element of periphery and margin threatened the exclusive claims of the center, they were incorporated. Syed calls this process of conscious affiliation proceeding under the guise of filiation, that is, mimicry of the center, proceeding from a desire not to be accepted but to be adapted and absorbed. The people from the periphery immersed themselves in the imported culture, denying their origin to become more English than the English. For instance, T.S. Eliot and Henry James. Post-colonial societies sought to establish their difference from Britain, having recognized the complicity between language, education, and cultural incorporation. They attempt to break the link between language and literary study by dividing English departments in universities into separate schools of linguistics and literature. Ngugi wa Thiong'o's essay on the abolition of the English department, written in 1972, illuminates the same argument held in Africa. John Docker's essay, The Neo-Colonial Assumption in the University Teaching of English, written in 1978, also addresses similar problem in the context of settler colony. Even though many attempts have been made to dismantle the power, and after such a long decolonization process, English studies got the higher position due to the canonical nature, that is, the unquestioned status of the works of English literary tradition, and the incorporated values remained potent in the cultural formation and the ideological institutions of education and literature. English studies thus played a major role in these erstwhile colonies even after decolonization. Let's deal with the other issues discussed in the text in the next video. Thank you.